Chapter 2: The Timeline, From Kingdom to Little Season. Scene 1: The Millennial Kingdom and the Rise of English. After the collapse of Rome in 476 AD, Europe was fractured. Kingdoms rose and fell, but out of the chaos, a new order emerged. Some believe this was the Millennial Kingdom foretold in Revelation 20, 1,000 years when Christ reigned and Satan was bound. During this time, languages shifted. Latin remained in the church, but it began to lose its grip. On the edges of empire, a new language appeared: English. Old English, spoken from the 5th to the 11th centuries, grew from the migrations of the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. By the 9th century, King Alfred the Great translated parts of Scripture into Old English, declaring, "It is most necessary for all men to know the law." Unlike Latin, tied to priests, or Greek, tied to scholars, English was plain, clear, and covenantal. It carried the simplicity and purity Zephaniah had foretold. "Then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they may all call on the name of the Lord." Scene 2: The purity of Old English. Old English words were short, strong, and unambiguous. They carried divine meaning in their very roots. Woman from with man, from man. Eve was drawn out of Adam's rib. The verb to woo means to draw out. A woman is therefore woo man, one drawn out of man, made to complete him. Truth, from triath or triath, meaning faith, covenant, reliability. To speak truth was to bind yourself in faithfulness before God. Good, from God, upright, virtuous, aligned with God. Evil, from yafel, meaning twisted, harmful, destructive. Law, from lagu, meaning that which is laid down. In Old English, law meant God's order, his natural law written into creation. Person, simply a human being. Later, Latin persona meant mask, already preparing the word for corruption. Church, from ceres, meaning the Lord's house, clear and simple. King, from sinning, son of the kin, one raised up from the people to protect them. These words revealed divine simplicity. English was a pure language, non-deceptive, covenantal, clear. Scene 3: Middle English and the People's Bible. By the 11th century, English absorbed French and Latin after the Norman conquest of 1066, yet it remained the people's tongue. In the 14th century, John Wycliffe, c. 1320 to 1384, produced the first complete English Bible. He declared, "The Bible is for the government of the people, by the people, and for the people." This was revolutionary. Scripture, once locked in Latin, was given back to the common people. Middle English carried covenantal clarity, even as it blended with foreign words. Scene 4: Early Modern English and the King James Bible. The 16th century brought transformation. William Tyndale, 1494 to 1536, translated the New Testament into English, saying, "I will cause a boy that driveth the plough to know more of the Scripture than the Pope himself." For this, he was executed, but his words lived on. In 1611, the King James Bible was published. Its phrasing shaped English spirituality and literature for centuries. Psalms, Proverbs, and the words of Christ now reached every home in their own language. This was the high point of English as the covenant tongue. Old and Middle English had prepared the way. The King James Bible fulfilled Zephaniah's prophecy, a pure language restored so that all might call upon the Lord together. Scene 5: The corruption of English, Legalese, and empire. But from the 1500s onward, English began to twist. French and Latin dominated courts and contracts. New phrases entered the tongue, long, complex, and designed to obscure meaning. Where Old English gave clarity, Legal English created ambiguity. Words no longer carried single, covenantal truths. They became layered with multiple meanings, serving law instead of God. Examples of Legalese corruption: person, once a human being, now in law, a fiction. A man, a corporation, even the state. Consideration, once thoughtfulness, now something of value exchanged in a contract. Charge, once a duty, now an accusation or debt. Bond, once covenantal, now financial debt. Right, once righteousness under God, now a privilege granted by the state. Subject, once under God, now subject of the crown. Null and void, redundant, yet binding in law. Free and clear, words of liberty that hide conditions in fine print. By the 17th century, English had become the language of empire. Ships carried charters across the seas. Colonies were claimed in English law. Banking, commerce, and maritime codes spread under English rule. The same tongue that carried the Bible was twisted into Legalese, the language of empire, contracts, and control. Revelation 23 says that after the 1,000 years, Satan would be released for a little season. If the Millennial Kingdom purified language, the little season corrupted it. English was universal, but no longer angelic. It was legal.